The silence of space was absolute, save for the occasional metallic ping of cooling systems and the soft wheeze of air recyclers well past their prime. Kalen hunched over a workbench in what had once been the main maintenance bay of Xylos 9, his calloused fingers working methodically to repair an oxygen filter that threatened to fail within the week. The harsh fluorescent lighting cast deep shadows across his weathered face, accentuating the scar that ran from his right temple to the corner of his mouth, a permanent reminder of a past he could never escape. Xylos 9 had been abandoned for nearly a decade. Once a thriving asteroid mining outpost on the fringes of the Helios belt, it now drifted forgotten, a ghost station housing a single occupant who preferred the company of machines to people. The station's vast corridors, designed to accommodate hundreds of workers, stood empty and cold. Emergency lighting cast eerie blue shadows along walls marked with warning signs in multiple languages. Most sections had been sealed off to conserve power and oxygen, leaving Kalen with a cramped living space cobbled together from the least damaged sections. He straightened his back, wincing at the familiar ache between his shoulder blades. The oxygen filter still needed calibration, but his eyes burned from fatigue. 18 hours without sleep wasn't unusual for him, but the headaches were getting worse. He glanced at the vitamin supplement dispenser, another piece of salvaged equipment that functioned only through his stubborn refusal to let anything mechanical die under his watch. 4 more days, he muttered to himself, eyeing his dwindling supply console where his remaining credits were displayed. Just enough for the replacement part for the air filtration system. No margin for error. No room for unexpected problems. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had once commanded engineering teams on military vessels with budgets larger than some planetary colonies. Now, he counted every recycled drop of water, every watt of power generated by the station's failing solar arrays. Such was the life of a man officially designated as deceased in military records, a ghost hiding on a ghost station. Rising from his workbench, he moved to the observation port, one of the few luxuries he permitted himself. Beyond the reinforced glass, the endless void of space stretched out before him, punctuated by distant stars and the occasional glint of an asteroid. The Helios belt formed a hazy band across his view, countless rocks of varying sizes orbiting lazily, each potentially containing enough valuable minerals to buy a small moon. Not that it mattered to Kalen. Mining required equipment, investors, and most importantly, a legal identity. His daily routine was simple. Check system diagnostics, repair what was broken, salvage what could be salvaged from abandoned sections of the station, and occasionally venture out in his patched-together EVA suit to collect materials from nearby debris. Existence, not living. Survival, not life. The console behind him beeped once, an unusual sound in the perpetual quiet. Kalen turned, eyebrows raised. The proximity alarm. Something was approaching Xylos 9, and it wasn't scheduled debris or a natural object. He moved quickly to the control terminal, fingers dancing across the worn interface. Unidentified vessel, he muttered, enhancing the grainy image. Small. Passenger class, maybe. The craft was moving erratically, its trajectory suggesting damage to navigation systems. As he watched, the ship's engines flared briefly, then died completely, leaving it to continue on a dangerous path toward a dense asteroid cluster beyond the station. For 3 full minutes, Kalen stood motionless, a war raging in his mind. Investigating meant burning fuel he couldn't spare. It meant risk. It meant involving himself in whatever trouble had found that ship. Every instinct honed from years of self-preservation told him to ignore it, to turn away and continue the endless task of keeping himself alive for another day. But something else, something buried beneath layers of bitterness and disillusionment, stirred within him. He cursed under his breath and reached for his EVA suit. Just a quick check, he told himself as he sealed the helmet. Nothing more. The service drone he'd repaired last month wasn't designed for rescue operations, but it was all he had. Kalen guided it through the debris field, calculating fuel consumption with each course adjustment. The ship had come to rest against a medium-sized asteroid, its hull breached in multiple places. No signs of life appeared on his scanner, but the heavy mineral content of the surrounding rocks could be interfering with readings. When he finally reached the wreckage, his heart sank. The damage was catastrophic. Explosive decompression had torn through the small vessel's main cabin. Whoever had been aboard couldn't have survived. Still, he maneuvered closer, searching methodically through the twisted metal. His headlamp illuminated fragments of what had once been someone's personal possessions: a datapad shattered beyond repair, clothing torn to shreds by the vacuum, a small holographic pendant, still somehow intact, displaying a binary star system Kalen didn't recognize. He was about to turn back when his light caught something unusual: a sealed emergency pod, partially hidden beneath a collapsed bulkhead. These pods were designed to activate automatically in catastrophic situations, preserving their occupants in stasis until rescue arrived. Most ships carried them, though few survived intact during violent decompressions. Using the drone's mechanical arm, Kalen carefully shifted debris away from the pod. The status indicator light on its control panel flickered weakly, amber, not green. Partial system failure. If someone was inside, they wouldn't last long. Getting the pod back to Xylos 9 consumed nearly all the drone's remaining fuel. By the time Kalen had it secured in the station's small docking bay, alarms were blaring from his EVA suit. Oxygen critically low. He shed the suit with practiced efficiency and approached the pod, wiping frost from its small observation window. Inside lay a female figure, but unlike any human Kalen had ever seen. Her skin was pale with an ethereal luminescence, like moonlight through thin clouds. Where human features would have been hard and defined, hers flowed with a delicate alien grace. High cheekbones beneath lidded eyes, a slender nose, lips tinged with a faint lavender hue. Most striking was her hair, which seemed to shimmer between silver and a soft purple, depending on how the light struck it. She was Lyran, a rare sight this far from the central systems. Their species had only made contact with humans some 30 years ago, and relations remained cautious on both sides. They were known for their advancements in quantum physics and their strictly pacifist government. The pod's medical readout confirmed his fears: critical life support failure in progress. Internal temperature dropping rapidly. The occupant's vital signs were weakening. Her species ran naturally cooler than humans, but even for a Lyran, her core temperature was dangerously low. Blood loss from multiple injuries compounded the problem. Kalen's fingers flew over the emergency release. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic vapor. The Lyran woman lay motionless, dressed in a thin garment that might have been formal attire or sleeping clothes, but certainly not suitable for survival. Multiple lacerations crossed her arms and torso, hastily sealed by the pod's automated medical system, but still severe. He lifted her with care, surprised at how light she felt despite being only slightly smaller than an average human woman. Her skin was ice cold against his hands as he carried her to his living quarters and placed her on his cot. Working quickly, he connected her to his medical scanner, a military-grade device he'd managed to keep functional through years of meticulous maintenance. Multiple internal injuries, he read from the display. Severe hypothermia, blood loss approaching critical levels. The scanner struggled to interpret her physiology, flagging numerous unknown readings with cautionary markers. Lyra medical data wasn't common in standard databases, especially not in outdated military equipment. Kalen activated the room's environmental controls, raising the temperature as high as the station's strain power supply would allow. He applied regenerative patches to her worst wounds and administered a universal plasma substitute from his dwindling medical supplies. But the temperature remained his greatest concern. Lyrans evolved on a warmer planet than Earth. The cold affected them more severely than humans. His thermal blanket, thin and worn from years of use, would not be enough. He paced the small room, calculations running through his mind. The replacement oxygen filter component would arrive in 4 days via automated drone delivery from the black market station 3 sectors away. The cost had already claimed almost all his remaining credits. Without it, his air would turn toxic within 2 weeks. His eyes fell on the communications terminal. There was one other option. The merchant's face appeared on the screen, eyebrows raising in recognition. Kalen, twice in 1 month. To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Don't tell me you need to change your order. I need something else. Emergency thermal blanket. Military grade. Highest setting. The merchant's expression shifted from surprise to calculation. Those aren't easy to come by, especially not with delivery to your remote location. I know the cost. Send it with my scheduled delivery. That won't work. Your scheduled delivery is already dispatched. This would need to be a separate shipment. The merchant named a price that made Kalen's jaw clench. Payable immediately, of course. It was exactly the amount remaining in his account, the credits meant for the oxygen filter. Kalen looked over his shoulder at the unconscious Lyran woman. Her breathing had grown more labored, her luminescent skin dimming noticeably even in the few minutes they'd been talking. Done, he said, authorizing the transfer. I need it now. The merchant's surprise was genuine this time. It'll be there in 6 hours. He hesitated, then added, whatever you've got there, I hope it's worth it. The connection terminated, leaving Kalen in silence, broken only by the Lyran's shallow breathing and the constant hum of the station systems. He moved to the cot and carefully adjusted the thin blanket covering her, knowing it was woefully inadequate, but having nothing better to offer until the delivery arrived. 6 hours, he told her, though she couldn't hear him. Just hold on for 6 hours. The emergency thermal blanket arrived exactly when promised, a testament to the efficiency of black market operations even in this desolate region of space. Kalen activated it immediately, the advanced material instantly generating heat calibrated specifically for Lyran physiology, a setting he hadn't even known existed on such devices. For 3 days, Kalen barely slept, monitoring the Lyran woman's vital signs and changing her wound dressings. The regenerative patches were working, slowly closing the worst of her injuries, but her unconscious state persisted. He talked to her sometimes, more to break the silence than from any belief she could hear him. He told her about the station, about the repairs he'd made that day, about the distant asteroid storms visible from the observation port. Mundane things, safe things that required no mention of his past or hers. On the 4th day, as Kalen dozed in a chair beside the cot, he was startled awake by the sensation of being watched. The Lyran woman's eyes were open, deep violet irises with flecks of silver, like twilight skies filled with stars. She stared at him with an intensity that made him freeze, uncertain whether he was seeing fear or something else in that alien gaze. When she tried to sit up, he moved forward instinctively to help her, but she recoiled, pressing herself against the wall. Her hands raised in a defensive gesture, and she spoke rapid words in a language he didn't understand, melodic but sharp with what could only be warnings or threats. Kalen stepped back, raising his own hands to show they were empty. You're safe, he said, keeping his voice low and even. Your ship crashed. I brought you here, to my station, Xylos 9. He pointed to himself. Kalen. The woman's eyes darted around the room, taking in the cramped quarters with their mixture of utilitarian design and jury-rigged modifications. Her gaze lingered on the medical scanner, the regenerative patches on her arms, and finally, the thermal blanket still wrapped around her lower body. After a long pause, she spoke again, this time in halting standard. Why? Help. The question caught him off guard. It had been so long since he'd needed to explain his actions to anyone. You were dying, he said simply. She studied him for several more seconds before some of the tension left her body. Slowly, she touched one of the regenerative patches on her arm, then the thermal blanket. This? Expensive. It wasn't a question. Kalen shrugged. You needed it. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if trying to detect deception in his response. Finding none, she inclined her head in what might have been a gesture of acknowledgement or thanks. Lyra, she said, touching her chest. Your name is Lyra? Kalen asked, surprised by the coincidence. A Lyran named Lyra. She shook her head. Not. Name. Species. She tapped her chest again. Name. Alara. Over the next 2 days, communication between them improved incrementally. Alara's grasp of standard strengthened as she used it more, though she still spoke in clipped sentences and struggled with complex concepts. Kalen provided her with small meals from his carefully rationed supplies, each time assuring her that he had plenty, a lie she seemed to recognize but accepted without comment. She remained wary, watching him constantly when they were in the same room. She slept fitfully, waking at the slightest sound. Twice, Kalen found her examining the station's airlock controls, as if planning escape routes. He made no mention of this, instead focusing on giving her as much space as the confined quarters would allow. On the 6th day, as Kalen worked to repair a faulty water recycler, he felt Alara's presence behind him. She had approached silently, a trait he was beginning to recognize as characteristic of her species. "You hide," she said, not a question but an observation. Kalen's hands stilled on the recycler components. "Yes," he admitted after a moment. "From what?" "Everyone." He turned to face her, seeing no point in deception. "The military, former colleagues, the law, on some planets." She nodded, as if confirming something she'd already suspected. "I also hide." This was the most personal information she'd volunteered since waking. Kalen waited, not wanting to push. After a long pause, she continued. "My mate, dead, killed." Her hand moved unconsciously to the small pocket in her garment, where she kept the holographic pendant Kalen had recovered from her ship. "I have dangerous knowledge. They hunt me." "Who are they?" Kalen asked. "Omnicorp." The word came out as a hiss, filled with more emotion than he'd heard from her thus far. "My mate discovered. Terrible thing. Weapon. Planet killer." She tapped her temple. "I have proof. Must reach Alliance Council." The gravity of her situation settled over Kalen like a physical weight. Omnicorp was one of the largest multi-planetary corporations in known space, with resources that dwarfed many planetary governments. They maintained their own security forces that operated with near-military efficiency. If they wanted Alara dead, hiding on a forgotten station like Xylos 9 was only a temporary solution at best. "You saved me," Alara said, drawing his attention back to her. She touched the thermal blanket she still kept wrapped around her shoulders despite having recovered from hypothermia. "Why?" Kalen considered the question, unsure himself of the complete answer. "It seemed like the right thing to do," he said finally. "There's been too much death already." She studied him with those unsettling violet eyes. "You have killed." "Yes, but no longer wish to." "No." The word felt inadequate for the weight of regret behind it. Alara nodded once, decisive. "I will trust you, Kalen." She removed the pendant from her pocket and extended it toward him. "This contains all data. My mate's research. Proof of Omnicorp weapon. If I die, you must send to Alliance Council." The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on him. She was entrusting him not just with information, but with the purpose that had kept her fighting to survive. Kalen felt the responsibility settle onto his shoulders. Another burden, but somehow not an unwelcome one. "I'll help you get it there yourself," he promised. That evening, as they shared a meager meal of reconstituted protein and the last of Kalen's real tea, Alara asked him about his past. He found himself speaking of things he hadn't allowed himself to remember for years. His time as a military engineer, the missions that had slowly eroded his belief in the cause he served, and finally, the catastrophic failure that had been deemed his responsibility. "It was a civilian transport," he said quietly. "Our orders were to disable it, suspected of carrying arms to insurgents. The targeting system, I'd reported the malfunction twice. Command insisted we proceed." He stared into his empty cup. 914 civilians. No weapons found afterward. "You were following orders," Alara observed. "Yes, and no court in Alliance space would have convicted me for it." His fingers tightened around the cup. "But I knew the system was faulty. I should have refused the order, whatever the consequences." "So you died," Alara said, using his earlier terminology. "Became ghost. It seemed better than living with medals pinned to my chest for an action that killed hundreds of innocents." Alara was silent for a long moment. My mate made weapons once, she said finally. For Lyran Defense Forces. Small weapons, for protection only. When he discovered what Omnicorp planned, he recognized the design elements. His work twisted. Her luminescent skin dimmed slightly with what Kalen now recognized as strong emotion. He tried to stop them through proper channels. They sent assassins that same night. They sat in companionable silence after that. Two souls united by guilt, loss, and the weight of knowledge too dangerous to bear alone. The proximity alarm shattered the pre-dawn quiet 3 days later. Kalen was instantly alert, moving quickly to the control terminal while Alara emerged from the sleeping alcove where she'd been resting. Ship approaching, Kalen reported, scanning the readouts. Military grade, but unmarked. Not Alliance. His stomach tightened. Omnicorp private security. Alara's face showed no surprise, only grim acceptance. They found wreckage. Traced signal. We need to move. Now, Kalen was already gathering essential supplies. There's a maintenance tunnel network throughout the station. We can use it to stay ahead of them, maybe reach the emergency shuttles on the far side. They had barely secured their emergency packs when the station shuddered violently. Kalen checked the security feed. They've docked. Hard breach at airlock 2. At least 6 operatives in tactical gear. Alara clutched the pendant containing her mate's research. How many shuttles? Just one, and it's barely functional. I've been scavenging parts from it for years. Kalen hesitated, then added, it will fly, but not far. Not far is better than dead. Alara responded with unexpected pragmatism. The maintenance tunnels were cramped, dark passages that wound through the station's infrastructure like arteries. Kalen led the way. His knowledge of the station's layout their only advantage against the well-equipped hunters. They moved as silently as possible, pausing at intervals to listen for pursuit. After navigating 3 junctions, they emerged into an abandoned hydroponics bay. Long-dead plants crumbled to dust in their trays, and the air had a stale, organic quality despite the environmental systems. We need to reach level 3, Kalen whispered. There's an access point near the old crew quarters that will. Alara suddenly gripped his arm, her eyes wide. She pressed a finger to her lips, then pointed upward. Kalen listened, and, after a moment, heard it too, the faint metallic sound of someone moving through the ventilation system above them. They froze in place, barely breathing. The sounds continued overhead, then gradually faded as whoever was searching moved away from their position. Alara released her grip on Kalen's arm, leaving faint, glowing traces where her fingers had pressed against the skin. A biochemical response to stress, he realized. They're hurting us, she whispered, blocking routes systematically. Kalen nodded. It was standard tactical procedure. Control the environment, limit escape options, force targets into a controlled confrontation. His military training recognized the strategy, even as his instincts screamed to run. We need a diversion, he decided. Something to draw them away from our actual route. From his pack, he removed a small maintenance drone, one of several he'd repaired over the years. It was simple, designed only for basic diagnostic functions, but it could move independently through the station. He quickly reprogrammed it with a path that would take it away from the shuttle bay, creating audio and thermal signatures that might be mistaken for human movement. This will buy us time, not safety, he warned Alara, and we'll still need to cross the main corridor to reach the shuttle. They'll almost certainly have someone stationed there. Alara considered this, then reached into her own pack and removed a small device Kalen didn't recognize. It fit in the palm of her hand, its surface a swirl of iridescent material that seemed to move under its own power. Lyran technology, she explained. Short-range energy disruptor. One use only. Will disable weapons, communications in 20-meter radius for approximately 40 seconds. Kalen stared at the device. That's extremely illegal in Alliance space. A ghost of a smile crossed Alara's face. Yes, Mommy was very creative, man. Their path to the shuttle bay took them through sections of the station Kalen rarely visited, areas so damaged or power depleted that they served no practical purpose. They moved carefully through collapsed corridors and rooms where microgravity fluctuations caused debris to float eerily in suspended animation. The maintenance drone had been dispatched in the opposite direction, and occasionally they heard distant sounds of pursuit as their hunters followed the false trail. They were 2 corridors away from the shuttle bay when everything went wrong. A hidden sensor, still active after all these years, detected their movement and triggered an automatic alert. Lights flashed along the corridor, and a long-dormant announcement system crackled to life, broadcasting their location to the entire station. "Run!" Kalen grabbed Ilara's hand, and they sprinted down the corridor, abandoning stealth for speed. Behind them, they could hear the rapid footfalls of the Omnicorp operatives converging on their position. They burst into the shuttle bay just as 3 armed figures entered from the opposite side. Sleek, matte black armor covered the operatives from head to toe, their faces hidden behind polarized visors. Each carried a pulse rifle aimed directly at Ilara. "Surrender the data, Lyran, and we may let your human pet live," the central figure called out, voice distorted through the helmet's communication system. Kalen pulled Ilara behind a cargo container, pulse bolts sizzling the air where they had stood moments before. The shuttle was visible across the bay, its boarding ramp extended as if in mockery of how close and yet unreachable it was. "The disruptor," Kalen whispered urgently. Ilara clutched the device, her luminescence dimming with what he now recognized as fear. "Must be closer. 20 meters maximum." Kalen scanned the bay, calculating angles and distances. "I'll draw their fire. When you see an opening, run for the shuttle. Use the disruptor only when you're close enough to affect all of them." "No!" Ilara's fingers dug into his arm. "They will kill you. Better one of us makes it than neither." He checked his makeshift weapon, a mining tool repurposed into something deadly. "That data needs to reach the Council." Before she could protest further, Kalen darted from behind the container, firing the mining tool. Its concentrated plasma beam wasn't designed as a weapon, but at close range, it could penetrate even tactical armor. His first shot caught one of the operatives in the shoulder, spinning them around with a cry of pain. The other 2 immediately returned fire, forcing Kalen to dive behind a maintenance vehicle. Pulse bolts struck the vehicle repeatedly, melting its outer shell and sending acrid smoke into the air. Under cover of this distraction, Ilara moved swiftly toward the shuttle, using cargo containers for cover. The wounded operative recovered quickly, joining the assault on Kalen's position. The maintenance vehicle wouldn't provide protection for long. Already, he could feel the heat of its disintegrating structure through his clothing. Across the bay, Ilara had nearly reached the shuttle. Just a few more meters, and she would be within range to use the disruptor. Kalen prepared to provide one final distraction, knowing it would likely be his last action. Just then, a new figure entered the bay, taller than the others, wearing more elaborate armor adorned with Omnicorp insignia of rank. "The commander." "Hold fire," the commander ordered, and the assault on Kalen's position ceased immediately. "We seem to be at an impasse." Kalen remained behind his rapidly deteriorating cover, weapon ready. The commander took another step forward, removing his helmet to reveal a face that caused Kalen's blood to run cold. "Hello, Lieutenant Commander Hall," the man said, using Kalen's former military title and surname. "Or do you prefer just Kalen these days? It's been, 5 years since your death." "Colonel, merci." Kalen's voice was a harsh whisper. "You're working for Omnicorp now? How the mighty have fallen." Mercer smiled thinly. "Director of Special Operations, actually. Better pay, fewer regulations." He gestured around the bay. "Though I admit, finding you here was unexpected." The official story is quite moving. The guilt-ridden officer who couldn't live with himself after a tragic accident, taking his own life rather than face a board of inquiry. He chuckled. "You left me to explain all sorts of messy details to the brass." "The targeting system was faulty," Kalen said through clenched teeth. "You knew it. You ordered the strike anyway. And you obeyed," Mercer reminded him coldly. "Just as you always did. The perfect subordinate, until you weren't." His expression hardened. "Now, Where's the Lyran female and the data she carries? Cooperate, and perhaps I can arrange for your continued non-existence. Kalen didn't dare glance toward Alara's position, now just meters from a shuttle. She's gone. Took an escape pod hours ago when we detected your approach. Mercer sighed theatrically. Always the poor liar, Kalen. My scanners detected 2 life forms in this bay moments ago. He raised his hand, and his operatives spread out, beginning a systematic search of the area. The data she carries cannot reach the Alliance Council. Surely you understand that. It would destroy not only Omnicorp, but undermine the entire military-industrial complex that keeps our civilization secure. You mean the complex that builds planet killers? Kalen spat. Mercer's eyebrows rose. So she shared that much with you. Interesting. He took another step forward. It's not a planet killer, Kalen. It's a peacekeeping deterrent. No different in principle from the weapons you helped deploy throughout your career. From the corner of his eye, Kalen saw movement. Alara, positioned now almost directly behind Mercer and his operatives, the disruptor device glowing faintly in her hand. She caught his gaze and gave an almost imperceptible nod. There's one key difference, Kalen said, straightening slightly to keep Mercer's attention focused on him. I eventually realized I was supporting the wrong side. With that, he lunged from behind his cover, firing the mining tool directly at Mercer. Simultaneously, Alara activated the disruptor. A wave of distortion rippled through the bay. The operatives' weapons went dead in their hands. Communication systems fizzled with static, and even the station's lights flickered momentarily. Mercer dodged Kalen's attack with military precision, but without a functioning weapon, he was forced to engage hand-to-hand. Kalen had spent years in manual labor, maintaining the station through sheer physical effort. Mercer, despite his combat training, found himself outmatched by Kalen's raw strength and desperate resolve. They grappled across the bay floor, Mercer landing precise strikes that Kalen absorbed through sheer determination. Alara had reached the shuttle and secured the hatch, its systems coming to life under her touch. But instead of immediately preparing for departure, she emerged again, the disruptor device in her hand now modified, its iridescent surface pulsing with unstable energy. Kalen, she called out. Move away. Understanding her intent, Kalen delivered a powerful blow to Mercer's solar plexus, creating enough separation to roll clear. Alara hurled the modified disruptor toward the operatives, who were beginning to recover as the device's effects wore off. The explosion was contained, but intense, a concentrated electromagnetic pulse that overloaded the operatives' armor systems. They collapsed, their equipment sparking and smoking. Mercer, partially shielded by distance, staggered but remained conscious, his expression contorted with rage. This isn't over, he snarled as Kalen retreated toward the shuttle. That shuttle won't make it 10,000 kilometers before our vessels intercept it. Kalen paused at the shuttle's ramp. Maybe not, he conceded, but we'll have sent the data by then. It was a bluff. They had no way to transmit the information from the shuttle, but Mercer's momentary uncertainty told Kalen it had hit home. Inside the shuttle, Alara was already at the controls, her fingers moving with surprising familiarity over the human-designed interface. Can fly, she confirmed as Kalen sealed the hatch behind them. But fuel limited. Life support damaged. It just needs to get us far enough to transmit the data, Kalen said, taking the co-pilot's seat. There's a trading outpost in the next sector. If we can reach it, they have communication relays strong enough to reach Alliance space. The shuttle's engines coughed to life, decades-old systems protesting their sudden activation. Through the viewport, they could see Mercer shouting orders to his recovering operatives, pointing toward the shuttle bay's emergency override controls. Hold on, Kalen warned as he engaged the launch sequence. The shuttle lurched forward, scraping against the bay floor before its anti-gravity systems fully engaged. Behind them, warning lights flashed as the bay doors began to close. Mercer had reached the override. Too slow, Alara observed calmly as the shuttle cleared the doors with meters to spare, emerging into the velvet blackness of space. The first moments of flight were tense, both of them expecting immediate pursuit. But the Omnicorp vessel remained docked at Xylos 9, perhaps damaged by the same electromagnetic pulse that had disabled the operatives. As they established a course for the trading outpost, a comfortable silence settled between them. The adrenaline of escape gradually faded, leaving behind an awareness of just how close they had come to failure and to death. "I never asked," Alara said eventually. "The blanket. It cost all your remaining credits?" Kayla nodded. "It was meant for an oxygen filter replacement, yet you spent it on Stranger. You needed it more than I did." He glanced at her profile, illuminated by the control panel's soft glow. "I've spent years just existing, keeping myself alive without purpose. When I found you, it was the first time since the accident that I made a choice based on something other than mere survival." Alara turned to face him, her violet eyes searching his. "No one has shown such kindness to me since my mate died. I did not think humans capable of such selflessness." "Most probably aren't," Kalen admitted. "I'm not sure I was, until recently." The shuttle's navigation system chimed, indicating they had cleared the asteroid field and were now on a direct course to the trading outpost. The immediate danger had passed, though Kalen harbored no illusions about the challenges still ahead. Omnicorp would not abandon pursuit easily, especially with Mercer personally involved. "We should rest," he suggested. "Take shifts monitoring the controls. It's 12 hours to the outpost, and we'll need to be alert when we arrive." Alara nodded, though neither moved from their seats immediately. The cramped shuttle offered little space for comfort. A single acceleration couch behind the cockpit was the only proper resting place. "You sleep first," Alara said. "I will watch." Too exhausted to argue, Kalen moved to the acceleration couch and stretched out, his body immediately protesting the movement with waves of pain from injuries sustained during the fight. Despite his fatigue, sleep eluded him. The events of the past hours replayed in his mind, along with newfound concerns about what awaited them. Some time later, he felt rather than heard Alara approach. She stood beside the couch, still wrapped in the thermal blanket he had purchased for her. Without a word, she settled beside him, her slender form fitting against his as if designed to complement it. The blanket, expanded to its full size, covered them both. "Body heat conserves energy," she explained softly, her breath warm against his neck. "Station is cold. Space is colder." "Practical," Kalen murmured, though his racing heart suggested a response that was anything but yes. "Practical." She was silent for a moment, then added, "Also, I do not wish to be alone. Not anymore." The admission hung in the air between them, vulnerable and honest. Kalen hesitantly placed his arm around her, drawing her closer. Her skin, once ice-cold when he'd found her in the emergency pod, now radiated a gentle warmth that seemed to flow between them. "I've been alone too long as well," he admitted, the words easier to speak in the dimness of the shuttle. Alara's luminescence brightened subtly, her body relaxing against his. "Sleep," she whispered. "I will watch over you first." Despite his concerns, exhaustion soon claimed Kalen, lulled by the rhythm of Alara's breathing and the comforting weight of her presence beside him. He woke hours later to find their positions reversed. Alara slept deeply, her face peaceful in repose, while he had instinctively maintained his protective embrace. The shuttle systems hummed steadily, their course still true toward the trading outpost. For the first time in years, Kalen felt something beyond the grim determination to survive another day. There was purpose in their mission, but also something more personal, more vital, growing between them. The trading outpost appeared on their sensors exactly when expected, a ramshackle collection of interconnected structures floating in the shadow of a desolate moon. Unlike Alliance stations with their stringent regulations and security protocols, outposts like these operated on the principle that credits outweighed questions. Identities could be purchased, information sold, and blind eyes turned for the right price. "We have problem," Alara observed as they approached. "No credits." Kalen's mouth twisted in a wry smile. "Not exactly. I have something better." From a hidden compartment beneath the co-pilot's chair, he retrieved a small case containing 3 uncut Helios crystals, rare minerals he had discovered during one of his scavenging expeditions and kept for a true emergency. One of these will buy us transit to Alliance space, new identities, and enough supplies to last until we reach the Council. Alera's eyes widened at the sight of the glittering blue-white crystals. This is fortune. Why stay on Xylos 9 with these? Where would I go? Kalen asked simply. What would be the point? I was a dead man with no purpose. He secured the case again. Now I have both. The outpost docking procedure was refreshingly minimal. A brief exchange of identification codes, easily falsified from the shuttle's outdated database, and an automated guidance system that brought them into a cramped but functional bay. As the airlock cycled, Kalen placed one of the Helios crystals in his pocket and concealed Alera's pendant inside the lining of his jacket. Stay close, he advised. The outpost is officially neutral, but Omnicorp has informants everywhere. Keep the hood up and try not to let your skin luminescence show too much. The outpost's main concourse was a chaotic blend of legitimate commerce and shadow dealings. Beings from dozens of species moved through the crowded space, some openly armed despite nominal prohibitions. Shops and service counters lined the walls, their signage a polyglot mixture of languages and symbols. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents and the constant background chatter of countless conversations. Kalen led them purposefully toward a discreet establishment marked only by a stylized communications icon. Inside, a heavy-set human woman with intricate facial cybernetics regarded them with practiced indifference. Transmission services, she stated flatly. Local, system-wide, or interstellar. Payment in advance. No refunds, no questions, no guarantees beyond our relay. Interstellar, Kalen responded. Secure channel to Alliance Council headquarters on Centauri Prime. The woman's augmented eyes narrowed. Alliance government channels cost extra. Verification protocols, encryption overhead. She named a figure that would have been outrageous in any legitimate business. Half that, Kalen countered. And information on recent Omnicorp vessel movements in this sector. A flicker of interest crossed the woman's cybernetic features. Information has a separate value. Depends on quality. Highest quality, Kalen assured her. Direct from a former Omnicorp Special Operations Director currently hunting us. After brief but intense negotiation, they reached an agreement. The woman led them to a private booth equipped with advanced communication systems, likely stolen or salvaged from military vessels. She activated the equipment, then left them alone after receiving partial payment in the form of a small fragment broken from the Helios crystal. Will this work? Alera asked, removing the pendant containing her mate's research. If the Council is as concerned about Omnicorp's activities as you believe, yes. Kalen established the connection, navigating through layers of security protocols with codes that should have expired years ago, but apparently remain valid. The Alliance bureaucracy's inefficiency worked in their favor for once. After several tense minutes, a stern-faced official appeared on the screen. His expression shifted from annoyance to shock as he recognized the classification of the incoming transmission. This is a restricted emergency channel, he began. How did you? No time, Kalen interrupted. We have evidence of Omnicorp's development of prohibited planetary-scale weapon systems. Data compiled by Dr. Karen, Lyran physicist, before his assassination. His widow is with me. We are currently being pursued by Omnicorp operatives led by former Alliance Colonel Mercer. The official's posture straightened at the mention of Mercer. Transmit your data while this channel remains secure. I will alert Council security forces. Alera connected her pendant to the communication system, initiating the data transfer. As the progress indicator advanced agonizingly slowly, Kalen kept watch on the booth's entrance. 60% complete, Alera reported after several minutes. The booth's door slid open. Kalen whirled, hand moving to his makeshift weapon, but it was only the cybernetic woman. Omnicorp troops just docked, she announced without preamble. Full tactical team. Someone sold you out. I recommend the service corridors to exit Platform C. Hurry. She handed Kalen a small data chip. Transit authorization to Proxima Station. Consider us even. 90%. Ilara said urgently as the woman departed. Kalen peered through the booth's privacy screen. Outside, the concourse's atmosphere had shifted noticeably. Civilians moving quickly toward exits, security personnel suddenly visible at key positions. We need to go. Now. Transmission complete. Ilara confirmed, disconnecting her pendant. The Alliance official began saying something about protective custody, but Kalen terminated the connection without ceremony. They slipped into the service corridor as the first sounds of confrontation echoed from the main concourse. The narrow passageway was dimly lit and smelled of machinery, lubricant, and waste processing, but it was mercifully empty. Following the cybernetic woman's directions, they moved swiftly toward exit Platform C, where independent transport vessels docked briefly for supply runs. The platform was in chaos when they arrived, workers rushing to complete loading operations as station security ordered an emergency lockdown. Kalen spotted a mid-sized cargo vessel with its loading ramp still extended, crew members hurriedly securing final shipments. There, he pointed, Proxima-bound freighter. With the transit authorization chip, they might have boarded legitimately under normal circumstances. Now, with OmniCorp forces sweeping the station, they had no choice but to slip aboard unnoticed among the cargo and crew. Using the confusion of the rushed departure, they managed to enter the vessel's lower storage deck just as the ramp began to retract. The freighter disengaged from the outpost minutes later, its captain evidently as eager to avoid OmniCorp entanglements as they were. From their hiding place among shipping containers, Kalen and Ilara felt the distinctive rumble of an older model FTL drive engaging. We did it, Ilara whispered, her luminescence brightening with relief. Data is safe with Council. OmniCorp cannot hide truth now. Mercer won't give up easily, Kalen cautioned. And we still need to stay hidden until we can reach Alliance protection. They found a relatively comfortable space among the secured cargo, where temperature regulation systems maintained a constant environment for sensitive shipments. Exhaustion from their narrow escape soon overtook them, and they settled against each other, sharing the thermal blanket that had become a symbol of their unlikely connection. You could have new life now, Ilara observed sleepily. With Helios crystals, forge new identity far from Alliance and OmniCorp. Kalen considered this. The thought had occurred to him. With the remaining crystals, he could indeed disappear to the outer colonies, perhaps find a peaceful existence on some agricultural world where his engineering skills would be valued without questions about his past. But the prospect held little appeal when he imagined it without Ilara. What about you? He asked instead. After the Council receives your evidence and acts against OmniCorp, what then? Ilara was silent for a long moment. I had no plan beyond delivering data, she admitted. My mate's work was my purpose. Now fulfilled. Her hand found his in the dimness. Perhaps. Find new purpose. The question hung between them, filled with possibility. Kalen entwined his fingers with hers, marveling at how natural it felt despite the physiological differences between their species. Perhaps we both could, he suggested. Quietly. The journey to Proxima Station took 3 days, during which they remained hidden in the cargo hold, emerging only during the night cycle when the crew was minimal. They found emergency rations and water dispensers meant for long-haul cargo supervisors, enough to sustain them comfortably. On the final night before arrival, as they sat side by side watching the hypnotic patterns of FTL travel through a small observation port, Ilara turned to face Kalen directly. I must ask, she began, uncharacteristic hesitation in her voice. When this ends, when we reach Alliance protection and OmniCorp faces justice, what do you want? For yourself? For future? Kalen gazed out at the swirling energies that carried them between stars. For so long, he had existed without considering such questions, each day merely an exercise in continuing to the next. Now, possibilities stretched before him that he hadn't dared consider in years. I want to stop running, he said finally. Stop hiding from what I did and what was done to me. Maybe find work that helps people instead of harming them. He turned to meet her violet eyes. And I want to see if whatever has started between us might grow into something more, given time and peace. Alara's luminescence intensified, casting a soft glow over their features. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his in what he had learned was a deeply intimate gesture among her people. I want this too, she whispered. Though path will not be easy. My people rarely made outsider kind. Your people may see me as alien, outsider. Let them, Kalen said with newfound conviction. We faced worse than disapproval and survived. The arrival at Proxima Station brought them back to the complexities of their situation. Unlike the lawless trading outpost, Proxima operated under full Alliance jurisdiction, with security protocols and identity verification at every access point. They could not simply slip away into the station's population. Instead, they made a calculated risk. Kalen used the communication systems to contact the same Alliance official who had received their transmission. Within hours, a discreet security team arrived to escort them directly to a diplomatic vessel bound for Centauri Prime. The council chambers were imposing, a vast circular space with representatives from over 30 worlds seated in rising tiers. Alara stood before them, her luminescence controlled but visible as she formally presented the evidence of Omnicorp's illegal weapons program. Kalen watched from a restricted observation area, pride swelling as her clear, precise testimony left the council members visibly disturbed by what they were hearing. The proceedings continued for days. Other witnesses were called, including former Omnicorp scientists who corroborated Dr. Karen's findings. Evidence of Colonel Mercer's activities emerged, leading to his arrest by Alliance military police. Omnicorp's stock plummeted as the scandal unfolded, and emergency measures were implemented to seize their research facilities. When it was over, when the Council had issued its resolutions and begun the lengthy process of dismantling Omnicorp's weapons division, Alara and Kalen found themselves in a quiet garden on the grounds of the Alliance diplomatic complex. The artificial environment reproduced the conditions of a temperate earth forest, complete with flowing water and simulated sunlight filtering through leaves. The Council has offered me citizenship and protection, Alara said, watching the play of light across a small stream. In compensation for my mate's death, they also wish to establish a research foundation in his name. He will be proud, Kalen observed. His work will save countless lives. Yes. She turned to face him. They also mentioned you. Your status has been reviewed. The military tribunal has posthumously cleared Lieutenant Commander Hall of all charges related to the civilian transport incident. Colonel Mercer's records confirmed he falsified maintenance reports. Kalen absorbed this information with complex emotions. The exoneration came years too late to undo the damage to his career or life, but it offered a kind of closure he hadn't realized he needed. So, I'm legally alive again, he said with a wry smile. Strange feeling. Alliance has offered you reinstatement at former rank, Alara continued. Or civil service position if you prefer, with considerable back pay. The opportunities were more than he could have hoped for when hiding on Xylos 9. A chance to rebuild a life within society, to use his skills constructively, to exist as something other than a ghost. And what about us? He asked, the question that mattered most to him now. Alara stepped closer, her luminescence brightening as it always did when her emotions intensified. I requested special dispensation from Lyran High Council and Alliance Diplomatic Corps. Both approve cross-species partnership. Registration, if we desire it. Official recognition? Kalen was surprised. That's unprecedented, isn't it? Many things about us are unprecedented, she replied with the subtle expression that was her equivalent of a smile. We change course of interstellar politics. Partnership registration is small matter by comparison. Kalen laughed, genuine joy surfacing for the first time in years. He took her hands in his, still amazed at how perfectly they fit together despite their different evolutionary paths. Then I accept, he said, whatever form the partnership takes, whatever challenges come with it. Under the simulated sunlight of Centauri Prime, with the sounds of flowing water and rustling leaves around them, They sealed their commitment in both human and Lyran traditions. A kiss and the gentle press of foreheads, a spoken vow and a shared bioluminescence that briefly caused Kaelin's skin to glow with the same soft light as Alara's. 6 months later, they had established a home on Proxima Colony, a world with a significant Lyra minority population and a climate comfortable for both species. Kaelin had declined military reinstatement, instead accepting a position developing civilian applications for reclaimed Omnicorp technology. Alara worked with the Karen Foundation, ensuring her mate's legacy continued in peaceful scientific advancement. Their dwelling was modest but comfortable, with large windows that admitted the red-tinged light of Proxima Centauri that Alara found particularly soothing. In the evening, as the star set behind distant mountains, they often sat together on a wide balcony, watching the changing colors of the sky. Any regrets? Kaelin asked one such evening, his arm around Alara's shoulders. She considered the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. "I miss my mate still," she said honestly, "as I know you sometimes miss your former life. But these are old pains, growing fainter." Her hand rested over his heart. "New joys are stronger." Kaelin nodded his understanding. They carried their histories with them, the losses and mistakes that had shaped them. But they carried them together now, making the burden lighter. As darkness fell and Proxima's remarkable night sky revealed itself, a tapestry of stars and nebulae visible through the colony's transparent atmospheric shields, they retired to their sleeping chamber. The thermal blanket from Xylos 9, now a treasured relic, lay folded at the foot of their bed, rarely needed in their climate-controlled home, but kept as a reminder of where their journey began. Alara's luminescence provided the only light in the room as they settled together, her body fitting perfectly against his as it had since that first night aboard the shuttle. The warmth between them was no longer merely physical. It had grown into something that sustained them both, healing old wounds and promising a future neither had dared imagine in their darkest days. From the cold of space to the warmth of home, Alara murmured, echoing words from a Lyran bonding poem she had shared with him. From isolation to belonging, Kaelin continued, completing the verse he had committed to memory. Her lips found his in the gentle darkness, her luminescence brightening with emotion. The technological marvel of a thermal blanket that had once saved her life, purchased with Kaelin's last credits, had long since been surpassed by the more profound warmth they created together, a testament to the unexpected paths that lead from sacrifice to love, from the void of space to the fullness of a shared life among the stars.